those 7 words, whispered by a stranger on an autumn afternoon, would shatter a single father's ordinary day and ignite a story no one saw coming. Least of all, the broken young woman who was simply trying to remember what human touch felt like. Jalen Cross was nursing his black coffee on his favorite bench outside the Ember Cup Cafe in River Haven, Oregon, watching autumn leaves spiral down onto the cobblestone sidewalk. It was one of those rare October afternoons where the sun broke through River Haven's usual gray, painting everything gold. His daughter Nola was inside, having her weekly auntie-day with his sister, which meant he had exactly 30 minutes of blessed solitude. He'd learned to treasure these moments. The quiet, the ability to finish a thought without being interrupted by questions about dinosaurs or whether clouds had feelings. He was watching a young couple laugh over their lattes through the cafe window when he sensed someone standing beside him. Close. Too close for a stranger. Jalen turned. A young black woman stood there, and the first thing he noticed was how thin she was. Fragile, like she might blow away with the next gust of wind. Her locks were pulled back in a messy bun, her dark skin seeming almost ashen in a way that spoke of exhaustion. But it was her eyes that stopped him. Hazel eyes, impossibly sad, fixed on him with a desperation that made his chest tighten. "Excuse me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, shaking slightly. "I'm sorry to bother you, but can you give me a hug, please?" Jalen blinked. In his 34 years, he'd been asked for a lot of things. Money, directions, the time. Someone had once asked him to help catch their runaway ferret. But this was entirely new territory. The woman must have seen the confusion flash across his face because tears immediately welled up in her eyes. "I'm sorry. I know that's weird. I shouldn't have." She started to turn away, her shoulders hunching inward like she was trying to disappear. "Wait," Jalen said, standing quickly. His coffee sloshed in his hand. There was something about her, about the raw vulnerability in her expression, that reminded him of the children he worked with at Bright Steps Pediatric Rehab. That look of someone who'd been hurt so badly, they'd forgotten what kindness felt like. "It's okay," he continued, setting his coffee down. "Are you all right?" The simple question broke something in her. Her face crumpled, and she shook her head. "No, I'm really not. I haven't had a hug in so long, and I saw you sitting here, and you looked kind, and I just thought maybe..." She trailed off, mortified. Her hands were trembling. Jalen's heart cracked open. He didn't think. He just opened his arms. "Come here," he said softly. The woman hesitated for only a second before stepping into his embrace. The moment his arms closed around her, she collapsed against his chest, her thin frame shaking with quiet sobs. He could feel how bony her shoulders were, how she trembled like a leaf barely clinging to its branch. She held on to him like he was a life raft in a vast, dark ocean. Jalen held her gently, the way he'd held his daughter after her worst nightmares. He didn't say anything. Sometimes words were useless. Sometimes all another human being needed was to be held, to be reminded that they existed. After what felt like both a moment and an eternity, the woman pulled back, wiping frantically at her eyes. "I'm so sorry," she said, her voice thick with embarrassment. "That was completely inappropriate. I promise I'm not crazy. I'm just going through something really difficult. I'm Raina Solis, and I swear I don't normally accost strangers and demand physical affection." Despite the heaviness of the moment, Jalen smiled. "Jalen Cross, and for what it's worth, you don't seem crazy. You seem like someone who needed a hug." He gestured to the bench. Would you like to sit down? Maybe tell me what's going on. I've got about 25 minutes before my daughter comes out, and I'm a pretty good listener. Raina looked at him like she was trying to figure out if he was real. You don't have to do that. You've already been kinder than you needed to be. I know I don't have to, but I'd like to. They sat together, and for a moment, neither spoke. Raina seemed to be deciding whether to trust this stranger who just held her while she cried. Finally, she took a shaky breath. Today marks exactly 2 years since my entire life fell apart. 2 years ago, I was driving home from my nursing shift at a hospital in Alder Bay. I just worked a double, 16 hours, and I was exhausted but happy because I'd helped a patient finally make a breakthrough in their recovery. Her jaw tightened. I was stopped at a red light, just sitting there waiting. And then this drunk driver came out of nowhere and slammed into my car at full speed. He ran the red light doing about 60 in a 35 zone. Jalen winced. The impact crushed the driver's side like it was made of aluminum foil. I remember the sound, this awful screaming of metal. And then pain. So much pain, I couldn't even scream. I remember thinking, this is it. This is how I die, at a traffic light on a Tuesday. She looked up at the sky, blinking back fresh tears. But I didn't die. Sometimes I wonder if that would have been easier. Her voice dropped to a whisper. They had to cut me out. Severe spinal injuries and a shattered pelvis. My L4 and L5 vertebrae were fractured, and my pelvis broke in 3 places. I spent 8 months in hospitals and rehabilitation centers. 3 surgeries on my spine, 2 on my pelvis. Learning to walk again was... She laughed bitterly. They don't tell you in the movies how humiliating it is. How much it destroys your sense of self when you can't do basic things anymore. I'm a pediatric physical therapist, Jalen said quietly. I've worked with kids going through similar trauma. It takes incredible strength. She shook her head. It doesn't feel like strength. It feels like survival, and barely that. She continued, her voice growing heavier. The medical bills buried me. I had insurance, but not enough. Every surgery, every night in the hospital, every therapy session, it all added up. I'm drowning in debt, $73,000 and counting. But here's the thing. I could have handled the physical pain. I could have handled the debt. What I couldn't handle was the loneliness. She finally looked at him, and the anguish in her eyes nearly undid him. My parents disowned me 6 years ago. I'd married someone they didn't approve of, Adrian. Different background, different religion, different socioeconomic class. They said if I married him, I was choosing to cut them out. I thought they were bluffing. They weren't. Her voice cracked. When the accident happened, I tried to reach out. I was scared and alone and broken, and I just wanted my mom. I called from the hospital. My dad answered. I told him what happened. And you know what he said? You made your choices. Now you have to live with the consequences. And he hung up. Jalen felt anger rise in his chest. It gets better, Raina said with a hollow laugh. Adrian left me 3 months after the accident. Said he couldn't handle seeing me like this. He filed for divorce while I was still using a walker. The ink was barely dry before he was dating someone else. She took another shaky breath. I lost my job because I couldn't go back to nursing. The physical demands were too much. My disability payments barely cover rent for a studio apartment in one of River Haven's rougher neighborhoods. I moved here hoping for a fresh start, but instead I found nothing. Just more loneliness. What about friends? Jalen asked gently. drifted away. At first they visited, brought flowers, said the right things. But chronic pain and disability make people uncomfortable. The invitation stopped. The calls became less frequent. Eventually they disappeared. And I don't blame them. I became a black hole of need and sadness. She turned to face him fully. Do you know what the worst part is? Not the pain, though, that's there every single day. Not the debt or the loss of my career, or even my family's rejection. The worst part is that I realized this morning that I haven't had any physical affection in 2 years. Not a hug, not even a meaningful handshake. Tears were flowing freely now. I felt like I was disappearing, like I wasn't even human anymore. Just this ghost moving through the world. I left my apartment today thinking I might just walk until I couldn't walk anymore. But then I saw you sitting here, and something about you looked safe, and She covered her face. I'm sorry. This is too much. You didn't ask for my life story. Jalen sat with her words, feeling their weight. Finally, he spoke. 3 years ago, my wife collapsed while jogging. Raina's head snapped up, her tear-stained face registering surprise. She went out for a morning run, same as every day. 5 miles through our neighborhood. She'd been training for a half marathon. She was 31 years old, healthy, vibrant, full of life. He stared at the maple tree across the street. A neighbor found her on the sidewalk 3 blocks from our house. Sudden cardiac arrest caused by a congenital heart defect no one knew existed. One moment she was alive, planning our daughter's 3rd birthday party. The next, she was gone. Jalen, I became a single father overnight, drowning in grief while trying to explain to a confused toddler why mommy wasn't coming home. Nola, that's my daughter, she's 6 now. But back then she kept setting a plate for Taryn at dinner, kept asking when she could show mommy her new drawings. His voice roughened. For a long time, I felt exactly what you described. Invisible. Like the world had moved on and forgotten I was still standing in the rubble. Couples we'd been friends with drifted away because I was suddenly a reminder that life is fragile. I was a single dad in a world full of intact families. They sat in shared understanding. 2 people broken by life in different ways, but understanding the same truth. Loneliness was its own kind of death. How did you survive it? Raina asked. Nola saved me. I didn't have the luxury of falling apart because she needed me. And my work helped. Seeing kids fight to get better reminded me that healing was possible. Before Raina could respond, the cafe door burst open. Daddy! A little black girl with wild curly puffs and warm honey eyes came barreling out, followed by a laughing woman who could only be Jalen's sister. The child launched herself at Jalen. Hey Jellybean, how was Auntie Day? So good. We made cookies shaped like dinosaurs. And Auntie Demi let me put so much frosting on them that she said they looked like they'd been attacked by a frosting monster. And she laughed so hard milk came out of her nose. Well, not real milk, almond milk, because she's lactose intolerant. Jalen's sister laughed. Lactose intolerant, sweetie. Close enough. She noticed Raina then, her expression shifting to polite curiosity. Nola, this is my new friend, Raina. The little girl turned to Raina with unfiltered interest. Hi, I'm Nola, and I'm 6 3/4, which is almost 7. Are you friends with my daddy? Do you like dinosaurs? I like the ones with the long necks, but also the scary ones with big teeth. Do you know what Daddy says? He says I ask a million questions. But I counted once, and it's really only about 47. So he's very wrong about math. For the first time since approaching Jalen, Raina laughed. Really laughed. The sound was rusty, but genuine. Hi, Nola. That's a beautiful name. I like all the dinosaurs, but my favorite is probably the Stegosaurus because they look friendly. Ooh, I like those too. Did you know the plates might have been for temperature control? Or maybe to look scary to predators? Scientists aren't sure yet, which means there's still mysteries, which Daddy says is good, because mysteries keep life interesting. Jalen caught Raina's eye and mouthed sorry over his daughter's head. But Raina was smiling, a real smile that reached her eyes. Your daddy is very wise. Do you want to come to the park with us? Nola asked suddenly. We're going to feed the ducks. We bring special duck food from the pet store. The ducks like it almost as much as bread, Daddy says. But I think maybe they're just being polite. Jalen started to object, but Raina spoke first. I would love that. That afternoon at the park became the first of many. After Jalen's sister left, Jalen gave Raina his number, telling her to reach out if she ever needed to talk. She texted him a week later, tentative and apologetic. Is the offer for coffee still open? I promise not to cry this time. Probably. Coffee turned into a weekly tradition, then twice a week, then 3 times with Nola often joining them, chattering about school and dinosaurs, and whether squirrels could understand English if you spoke slowly enough. Raina fit into their lives like a puzzle piece they hadn't known was missing. She was brilliant. Her nursing background meant intelligent conversations about medicine. She was funny, with sharp wit that caught Jalen off guard. And she was patient with Nola in a way that melted his heart. One crisp November afternoon, they were at the park. Nola was hanging upside down from the monkey bars. Miss Raina, do you know what the best thing about space is? What's that, sweet pea? That it goes on forever. Just like Daddy says his love for me does. But also there's aliens probably. I would invite them over for dinner and Daddy would have to make extra spaghetti. Very hospitable of you. Jalen watched Raina watch his daughter, and something warm bloomed in his chest. Over 3 months, Raina had become more than a friend. She helped him see parenting from a woman's perspective. She reminded him when Nola needed new clothes or dental checkups. She could braid hair, something Jalen had never mastered despite 17 YouTube tutorials. In return, he helped with things her chronic pain made difficult. He carried groceries up 3 flights of stairs. He drove her to appointments when rain made her injuries ache. He reached high shelves and opened stubborn jars. But more than the practical help, they filled the lonely spaces in each other's lives. They stayed up late texting about everything and nothing. They developed inside jokes. They became each other's emergency contacts, each other's safe people. You're good with her, Jalen said quietly, watching Raina show Nola proper monkey bar technique. Raina glanced at him, surprised. She's an easy kid to be good with. She's amazing, Jalen. You're doing an incredible job. I'm terrified every day that I'm screwing her up, that she needs a mother and I'm failing her. Hey. Raina touched his arm gently. You're not failing her. She's happy, healthy, curious, kind. Those things don't happen by accident. They happen because she has a father who shows up for her every single day. Jalen looked down at her hand on his arm. His heart did something complicated. Thank you for being part of our lives. I don't think you realize how much you've changed things for us. Raina withdrew her hand, looking flustered. I should be thanking you. You gave a stranger a hug when she was too broken to ask properly. Most people would have walked away. I'm glad I didn't, Jalen said, holding her gaze. The moment stretched between them, charged with something neither was ready to name. Then Nola called out, "Daddy, Miss Reyna, come push me on the swings. I want to go so high I can see into tomorrow." Later that evening, after dropping Reyna off, Nola was unusually quiet in the back seat. "Penny, for your thoughts, Jellybean? Do you think Miss Reyna is lonely?" Jalen's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Why do you ask?" "Because sometimes when she smiles, her eyes look sad. Like she's happy but also remembering something not happy. Like when you look at pictures of Mommy, you smile but your eyes get watery." Jalen pulled into their driveway and turned to face his daughter. Sometimes her observations took his breath away. "I think Miss Reyna has been through some really hard things. And sometimes it takes a while for people to feel completely happy again. But I think being with us helps her feel less lonely." "Good," Nola said firmly. "Because she's part of our family now, even if she doesn't know it yet." "I decided." "You decided, huh?" "Yep. And my decisions are very final. That's what Aunt Demi says." She paused. "Daddy, do you think Miss Reyna would like us to be her family? Like, for real?" "I think Miss Reyna would be very lucky to have us. And we'd be very lucky to have her." "Then we should tell her, before we miss our chance. That's what happened in the movie where the prince waited too long and the princess almost married the wrong person. It was very stressful." Jalen laughed, but his heart was pounding. 5 months after that first meeting, everything changed. Jalen was making dinner when his doorbell rang. His stomach dropped when he opened the door to find his late wife's parents. Victor and Marissa Hale looked older than a Taryn's funeral 3 years ago. They'd never visited since. Their grief too overwhelming. They'd sent birthday cards, but maintained their distance. Now they stood on his porch, their expressions grim. "Victor, Marissa, this is unexpected." They entered stiffly, eyes scanning his home. Marissa's gaze landed on the dining table where 3 placemats were set. "Are you expecting someone?" "Reyna is coming for dinner. She's our friend." "Yes," Marissa said coldly. "We'd like to talk about her." Jalen's blood ran cold. They moved into the living room. Jalen kept himself between them and the kitchen where Nola was coloring. "We've been doing research," Victor said. "This Reyna Solace you've introduced to our granddaughter." "What kind of research?" Marissa pulled out her phone. "She's drowning in medical debt, $73,000. She's on disability. She lives in a dangerous neighborhood. She was divorced 2 years ago. Her own family won't speak to her." "You investigated her?" "We're concerned about Nola's well-being. You're exposing our granddaughter to an unstable woman with serious problems." "Reyna is a kind, compassionate person who's been through hell and came out the other side. She's been an amazing presence in Nola's life. And it's none of your business who I spend time with." "It becomes our business when it involves our granddaughter," Marissa shot back. "This woman is financially unstable. She's dealing with chronic health issues. We won't stand by and watch you make reckless decisions." Jalen's voice dropped to a whisper, mindful of Nola. "Where were you two for the past 2 years? You couldn't handle seeing your granddaughter because she reminded you of Taryn, so you disappeared. You don't get to show up now and question my parenting." Victor's face reddened. "We're considering filing for grandparent visitation rights. Perhaps pursuing custody if we feel Nola's environment is unsuitable." The words hung like a bomb. "You're threatening to take my daughter?" "We're concerned about your judgment," Marissa said. "We've lost our daughter. We won't lose our granddaughter to poor decisions. You need to leave, now." They left, but their threat lingered. Jalen stood shaking with rage and fear. He knew they probably couldn't win custody. He was a good father with a stable home, but they could make his life hell with legal battles. When Raina arrived 30 minutes later, bright-eyed and carrying a homemade dessert, Jalen's heart broke. "Hey, I made brownies." "Well, I used a box mix, but I added extra chocolate chips, so I'm calling it gourmet." She noticed his expression immediately. "What's wrong?" He told her everything, watched her face pale. When he finished, she set the brownies down carefully. "Maybe they're right," she whispered. "Raina, no, listen to me. They're right. I do come with baggage. Debt, health problems, a dysfunctional family, a failed marriage. I'm a mess. You and Nola deserve better than someone who's broken. Don't say that. I should give you space. Let things calm down with her grandparents. I don't want to be the reason you lose Nola." "Raina, please." "I'm sorry, Jalen." She left. And Jalen didn't stop her. Partially because he was stunned. Partially because some small, terrified part of him wondered if she was right. 3 weeks passed. 3 weeks of Raina not answering his texts beyond brief responses. 3 weeks of Nola asking where Miss Raina was. 3 weeks of Jalen dealing with his in-laws, setting firm boundaries, threatening legal action. Victor and Marissa eventually backed off, their lawyer informing them they had no case. But Raina didn't know that, and Jalen was too proud, too hurt, too confused to tell her. The house felt wrong without Raina. Jalen found himself looking at his phone constantly, typing messages and deleting them. Nola grew quieter, more withdrawn. She stopped asking a million questions. "She's part of our family, Daddy," Nola said one night at bedtime, her voice thick with tears. "We're not supposed to lose family. We already lost Mommy. I don't want to lose Miss Raina, too." Jalen held his daughter while she cried, feeling like the worst father in the world. Raina, meanwhile, was drowning in her tiny apartment. The loneliness had come roaring back. She'd allowed herself to believe she could have a family again, that she could be loved despite her brokenness. She should have known better. Every night she looked at photos on her phone. Jalen and Nola at the park, Nola's drawings, selfies the three of them had taken. She traced their faces and let herself cry. She'd asked a stranger for a hug because she'd felt invisible. Now she felt worse, like she'd glimpsed heaven and been cast back into darkness. Nola, however, had had enough. "Daddy, I need markers and paper," she announced one Saturday morning, her small face set with determination. "What for, Jellybean?" "A very important project that is none of your business until it's done." 2 hours later, she presented him with a drawing. 3 stick figures holding hands under a bright yellow sun. One had wild curly hair, clearly her. One had short hair and was tall, Jalen, and one had locks and a big smile. Above them, in careful 6-year-old handwriting, "Our family. We're taking this to Miss Raina right now, because she needs to know she's still our family, even if she's being silly and staying away." "Maybe it's more complicated than—" "No, it's not," Nola interrupted firmly. "She's sad. We're sad. Everybody's sad. So we fix it. That's what families do." How could he argue with that? 20 minutes later, they stood outside Raina's apartment building. They climbed 3 flights of stairs, and Nola knocked firmly on apartment 3B. The door opened. Raina stood there in sweatpants and an oversized sweater, her locks in a messy bun, eyes red-rimmed. When she saw the drawing, fresh tears spilled over. "Miss Raina!" Nola threw her arms around Raina's legs. "I made you a picture. It's very important." Raina knelt down, wincing slightly, and took the drawing with shaking hands. "Nola, this is beautiful." "You're not broken, Miss Raina," Nola said with absolute certainty. "Daddy fixes broken people at work. He says broken just means something hard happened. But you're still here. That makes you super strong. Like a superhero. And superheroes don't stay away from their families because of silly grandparents. Raina looked up at Jalen, and something passed between them. Something raw and long overdue. I dealt with the grandparents, Jalen said quietly. Set firm boundaries. They've backed off. Their lawyer told them they didn't have a case. He moved closer. But you need to understand something. You're not dragging us down. You've made our lives better. Nola loves you, and He took a breath. I love you too. Not as a friend, as more. I think I have for a while. But I was too scared to admit it. Too scared of moving on from Taryn. But these 3 weeks without you showed me something. Life is too short to waste time being scared. Raina's eyes widened. Jalen, you don't have to say anything. I know it might seem fast, but 7 months of friendship has shown me exactly who you are. You're strong, Raina. Kind and funny and resilient. You make me want to be better. You make me laugh again. You make life have color again. I love you too, Raina whispered, tears flowing freely. I've loved you for months. I was just scared I'd ruin everything. That I wasn't good enough. That eventually you'd realize what everyone else did, that I'm damaged goods. You're not damaged. You're human. You've been through trauma. That doesn't make you less than. It makes you remarkable for surviving. Miss Raina, are you going to kiss my daddy now? Nola piped up. Because in movies, this is when people kiss. It's kinda gross, but also kinda nice. And I think you should probably do it because you both look like you want to. They both laughed through their tears. Jalen reached up and gently wiped the tears from Raina's cheeks. Maybe not yet, he said to Nola, though his eyes never left Raina. But soon. Okay, good. Because I need time to prepare myself, Nola announced dramatically, flopping onto Raina's worn couch. It might be very shocking to my system. Raina laughed. That real, genuine laugh Jalen had fallen in love with. Thank you, she whispered, for not giving up on me, for seeing past the broken pieces. There's nothing to see past. The broken pieces are part of you, and I love all of you. They stood in the doorway of Raina's tiny apartment, with Nola chattering about being an expert at love because she'd watched at least 10 princess movies. Autumn sunlight streamed through the window, painting everything gold. It wasn't a perfect moment. Raina's apartment was tiny and shabby. Her pain was visible in how she moved. Jalen's life was complicated with work and single parenthood and lingering grief. Nola would need time to adjust. But sometimes perfect isn't what matters. Sometimes what matters is two people brave enough to love despite fear. To trust despite past betrayals. To believe that broken things can create something beautiful when put together with care. Jalen realized something profound and simple. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is ask for a hug from a stranger on a bench. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is say yes. Raina felt invisible for 2 years. She'd felt like a ghost. And then one October afternoon, she found the courage to ask a stranger for something simple. Human touch. Proof that she still existed. Jalen could have said no. Most people would have. But he chose compassion. He chose to see her pain instead of judging her circumstances. And that single choice changed 3 lives forever. Because sometimes all it takes is one person willing to hold you when you're falling apart. One person who looks past your broken pieces and sees your whole heart. One person brave enough to say, "You matter." So be brave enough to ask. Be brave enough to answer. Be brave enough to believe that your story messy and complicated and beautiful as it is worth telling.